Okay. So, yeah, I almost swore. Okay. So now let's talk about the perfect aspect. The perfect aspect. So, what is the perfect aspect? Mm, eh, not exactly, Jessica. I mean, you're on the right track though. Yeah, actually, that's a good comment, Stephanie. It's the perfect aspect. You could think of it as like you could think of it like um you could think of it as an event having consequences in relation to a certain point in time. So 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 I think of the perfect aspect as an aspect that denotes that an event has some sort of relevance to another point in time, or um, that it has some sort of consequence at another point in time. So, so hold on. Let me see if I can. Okay, yeah. Here's actually a really good example. Here, let me post this. Here's how the perfect tense or aspect is defined. The perfect tense or aspect is a verb form that indicates that an action or circumstance occurred earlier than the time under consideration, often focusing attention on the resulting state rather than on the occurrence itself. And a few of you had answers that were close to that but weren't exactly like that. But yeah, basically it's about results and consequences. So, take for example the present perfect. So I have eaten my lunch. So how does this differ from the past simple I ate my lunch? They can both be used interchangeably here, but they mean slightly different things. Can anyone tell me what that difference is? They express different levels of past. Yeah, you could say that, but what exactly is the difference? Still eating? No, because you'd have, in order to express that, you'd have to say either I am eating my lunch or I have been eating my lunch. Yeah, yeah, exactly, Ian Dave. Thank you. Yeah, and that's another way of thinking about it, Andy. Yeah. So, with the present perfect, you have an action that starts in the past and has some sort of relevance in the present, or that it ended in the present. So, I have eaten my lunch is slightly different from I ate my lunch, because I have eaten my lunch implies that implies a stronger relationship to the present, as in it's something that you just did. Whereas I ate my lunch, it could mean something. It could mean something you just did, or it can mean something that you did like hours ago or whatever. So the present perfect has a stronger relation to the present than the past simple does. So when you say I've eaten my lunch, that implies that you did it not too long ago. And another important thing to note about the perfect aspect is that it does not work with specific points in time. So you can't use it with specific time markers. So knowing this, what's wrong with this sentence? What is wrong with this sentence? Yeah, it's the yesterday. Yeah, the word yesterday shouldn't be there. Or alternatively, you can just change the tense from has finished to just finished. So you could say he has finished his homework, or he finished his homework yesterday, but not he has finished his homework yesterday. So you can say this, or you can say this. It's one or the other. You cannot use the present perfect with time markers like that in the past. So you can say he finished his homework yesterday, or he has finished his homework. So just remember that, because that's something that some learners make. That's using the present perfect with specific time markers is something that a lot of learners do, and that's not correct. Now I know that in other languages it's different, because in French and Spanish the present perfect is more of a compound past thing. It's basically like an alternative past tense, unlike our version in English. So you could say things like I have finished my homework yesterday in Spanish and French, but in English we don't do that. We just don't. Anyway, and in German you can have a sentence like that too, but in English it's just one big no. Although regarding Spanish, most Latin Americans would not use the present perfect like that. So it's really something that only European Spanish speakers do. But yeah. Anyway, no, they're both correct. He finished his homework yesterday, and he has finished his homework. They're both correct. But he has finished his homework yesterday is not correct. Okay. So, you can combine the perfect aspect with the present tense. You could also do it with the past tense and the future tense. So here's an example of the past perfect. By the time I got home, everyone had already eaten dinner. By the time I got home, everyone had already eaten dinner. So the past perfect is used here to show that there was a past event that had some sort of relation to a certain point in time. That point of time being when the speaker got home. So that's why we use the past perfect here. And by the time often triggers the past perfect. Not always, because it can also trigger the future perfect, but we'll get to that later. So knowing this, can you guys differentiate the present perfect from the past? I'm sorry, the past simple from the past perfect. Sorry. Do you know what the difference is? Because a lot of people don't. So here are two examples. She had finished her chores when her mom came home. She finished her chores, oops, I meant to say chores there, when her mom came home. They're both correct, but what's the difference? So what's the difference? Well, yeah, the first sentence is the past perfect, but I want to know like what the actual semantic difference is, not just the verb difference. So someone already provided the correct answer, but I'll wait for others to provide their answers. Okay, so we have two correct answers so far. Three correct answers so far. Okay, so Nyan Chad, Stephanie, and Jedi Trip. They all got it. So, yes. So, yes, it would be, yeah, that's exactly what the difference is. The second sentence, she finished her chores when her mom came home, with the past simple, that implies that both actions happened at the same time. But in the first one, there's no implication of that. So the woman, whatever, like at a certain point in the past, she started on her chores, and then the result is that she finished them when her mom came home. Like she started in the past, and that led up to the point where her mom came home. So you can see now that the timing of the actions is different between the two sentences. The timing of the actions or events is different. So the first one means that she started on her chores before her mom came home, and just finished when her mom came home. Like she like it started at some point in the past, her doing her chores, I mean, and then it led up to the point where her mom came home. Whereas the second one, it just means that she finished her chores right when her mom came home. Yeah, exactly, Serenity. So be careful with how you use the past perfect and the present and the past simple, because because they're not really interchangeable most of the time. There are occasions where they're interchangeable, so you could say something like this. Or you could say something like this. So here's a context where where you'll hear either the past simple or past perfect used. Oh yeah, I almost forgot. Oh yeah, I had almost forgotten. In this case, you can use either. The past perfect just pushes the event further back, but really, this is one occasion where you can use either and it would not matter. So both are more or less the same here. It's just that the past perfect expresses the timing of the action slightly differently. So slightly different timing with the past perfect. So both sentences have the same meaning here. Just about. There's a slight difference, but it's pretty negligible in this context. It's pretty small. Okay, so one thing that you might notice, at least when it comes to American English, is that people will occasionally underuse the past perfect. So okay. So here's an example. Yeah, underuse as in use it less. So there are examples in English where people don't use the past perfect when they should. I think this happens more often in American English than in British English. And there are times where people actually overuse the past perfect, which I would say happens more often in British English than in American English. So and this is just a trend that I've noticed, American English speakers tend to underuse the past perfect, and British English speakers tend to overuse the past perfect. That's just what I've noticed. But here's an example that explains that shows the underusage of the past perfect. So here, one moment. Okay, so here's a context. Speaker A, do you remember when I finally got you to ride on that roller coaster that you were so afraid of? Speaker B, yeah, I never felt so alive. What's wrong with that tense? What's wrong with that tense? What is wrong with this tense? Something is wrong with that tense. Can you fix it for me? What's wrong? So what's wrong with that? Someone actually mentioned it. Yeah, someone mentioned it. It should be I had never felt so alive. I had never felt so alive. I had never felt so alive. The past simple doesn't quite work here. See, when you use the past simple like that, you're implying that the events, feeling so alive, that it never once happened. But that's clearly wrong, because at one point in the past it did happen, which would be better expressed with the past perfect. So yes, it should be had never felt. But there are Americans who talk like this. I've heard Americans talk like this. That's the problem. Sometimes they just delete the had when they should put it there. So yeah, the whole timing of the event would be better expressed with the past perfect, which would imply that some event started in the past and led up to another point in the past, or has some sort of consequence at another point in the past. If it does sound off to you, Stephanie, then that's good. You want that intuition. Okay, anyway. Now here's an example where people overuse the past perfect. Oh yeah, and remember, you can contract the perfect aspect. So you can say, I've never felt so alive, I'd never felt so alive, or I will have never, or I'll never have felt so alive, or whatever. Like, those contractions exist. But anyway. Hold on. Oh, bye, Delta. Okay. No, I wouldn't use the present perfect here because this is an event that took place entirely in the past. So the present perfect doesn't work here. So really only the past perfect works in that context. But if you want to express that you just you just rode a roller coaster, then the present perfect would be okay. It would be fine there. So like you could say, "Oh, that was awesome. I've never felt so alive." In that context, the present perfect would be fine. Okay, anyway. Here's an example of the misusage of the past perfect. We had left the house before our parents came home. What's wrong with this sentence? There isn't supposed to be had. Yeah, exactly. The had should not be there. And the reason for that, yeah, exactly. It should be we left. And although this sentence technically, I would say it's not technically wrong. It's not really so wrong. It's pretty redundant. The problem is just redundancy. And the reason for this is that the past perfect by nature already expresses that one action happened before another in the past. There's more to it than that, of course, but since we already have the past perfect, we don't need the word before. Or since we already have the word before, we don't need the had in the past perfect. We don't need it. So basically it's redundant. So if you want to use the conjunction before, you need to remove the had. We left the house before our parents came home. Or if you want to keep the past perfect, you need to change the conjunction before to when or by the time. So you can say this, or you can say this. And there are people that actually do talk like this, and I'm like, stop doing that. It's annoying. It's not exactly grammatically wrong, but it is so redundant. I mean, I'm not saying that you can't use it. I'm just saying that it's redundant. If you want to put the had in there, you can, but it's redundant. Because again, the past perfect already expresses that one action happened before the other. So you don't need the word before if you have the past perfect. You just don't. Mind blown, aren't you? So you could say either of the following. We had left the house when or by the time our parents came home, or we've left the house before our parents came home. Not we had left the house before our parents came home. That sounds awful. Don't speak like that, please. But I hear this kind of thing in British English quite a bit, and I'm just like, why? Stop doing that. Please, stop. Stop. You're hurting my ears. Stop it. Stop it. Okay. So, yeah, exactly. It's correct, but it's awkward to hear. Thou hast defiled mine ears. Exactly. Okay, so that's the past perfect, and you have the future perfect as well.
Are you guys still dating each other?
No.
You done so?
Yeah, well, hold on, guys. Um, no, like, yeah, we can't do it this week. I will. Okay, so let's continue. So now we have the future perfect. She will have done everything by the time we get to the office. So this is an example of the future perfect. You have to go to join staff in order to become a teacher. So go to the join staff channel. Okay, anyway, so here's an example of the future perfect. She will have done everything by the time we get to the office. She will have done everything by the time we get to the office. So this differs from the future simple in that we have some sort of consequence in the future. So So the woman will start like she'll start at some point, maybe in the present or in the future, doesn't matter, and then further down the line, the consequence is that she'll be finished with the work. So with the future perfect, you have an action that starts in the present or future and then ends at another point in the future. So that would be the future perfect. Okay, so here's another example that I think will help better express the difference between the future simple and the future perfect. I will have finished writing the program by the time we have to turn it in. Yeah, exactly. Puck! Puck! Well, I mean, you are agreeing for a reason. Oops. First try. Stop flexing. God. She will be finished when we get to the office. She will have been finished when we get to the office. So what's the difference here? The timing of the events is different, but how? No, I see someone is translating this to French. Puck! I'll see you later, Stephanie. Thank you. Thanks for the French. Yeah, Son Goku, you're correct. Like, yeah, basically in the second sentence, she will have been finished. That implies that, in the future, you know, it just pushes her being finished back further. So it means that that in the future she'll be finished at a certain point before the others get to the office. So yeah, so she had already finished by the time they got to the office. That's basically what the second means. That's in the first, it doesn't have that implication. It just means that she will be finished when they get to the office, but it doesn't tell us that that she was finished earlier than that. So that's the difference. And someone else technically posts, this one is also correct. Let me just mark this. Yes. Yeah, so it's really the timing of the events that changes. Okay, well, anyway. Hi, Will. Okay, anyway, so that's the perfect aspect. But what about the perfect continuous? Did you know that you can combine the two? I'm sure some of you already do, but for those of you who don't know, you can actually combine the two. So you can get a perfect continuous aspect. Or a perfect progressive. You can combine the two. So, yep, you can combine the two. Yeah, so for the present perfect progressive, or present perfect continuous, so you can say, I have been working, I have been doing, I have been watching, he has been working, he has been doing, he has been watching. And if you're wondering what this is, it's basically the present perfect, but with an ongoing nature. So you're combining the two aspects. So what's the difference between these two sentences? I have worked here for 3 years. I have been working here for 3 years. They're both grammatically correct, but there's a slight difference between the two. And you know what? Let me not do that. Okay, so I actually have 2 correct answers here. 3. So here's the thing. So it's technically possible for both to mean the same thing, but the first sentence can mean something different. So the first sentence has 2 interpretations. It can mean when you say I have worked here for 3 years, it can mean that you still work there, or it can mean that you stopped working there. Whereas the second sentence, I have been working here for 3 years, it can only mean that you still work there. So the first sentence can have 2 different interpretations. The second, only one. So that's the difference between the two. Yeah, not necessarily. Like, the first one could mean that you still work there. I have worked here for 3 years. It could mean that you still work there, but not necessarily. So, or it could also mean that you're not working there anymore, but again, not necessarily. So the first one's a bit more ambiguous than the second. So here, let me borrow an example that someone just posted. So what's the difference between this and this? For the past perfect simple and the past perfect continuous. I forgot to mention, sometimes the past perfect, present perfect, and future perfect are also called the past perfect simple, the future perfect simple, and the present perfect simple, to help better disambiguate them from the continuous forms. So you can have a present perfect simple and a present perfect continuous. Or you could just say present perfect instead of present perfect simple. So here, let me write this out actually. So present perfect equals present perfect simple, and so on and so forth for the past perfect and future perfect. Oops. So really, these all mean the same thing. You can add the word simple there, but you don't have to. Anyway, what is the difference between these two sentences? She had washed the car for 2 hours when I came. She had been washing the car for 2 hours when I came. And I don't even know how to read that 9 chat. I'm sorry, I don't know a lot of French. Okay, that's what I thought. I wasn't sure. I was like, this because like, do you say it's my mom? But I wasn't sure. Because I was like, okay, I think meach means mom, but I wasn't entirely sure. Yeah, exactly. The first one implies some sort of completion. The first one implies completion, the second one does not. She had washed the car for 2 hours when I came. Okay, so you're done. She had been washing the car for 2 hours when I came. Okay, so you're not done. Oh, you need to leave? Okay, bye, Faye. So yeah, that's the difference. And who could forget the future perfect and future perfect continuous? The continuous form just means that the action is typically means that the action is still in effect, or it's ongoing. Bye, Ash. Okay, so what's the difference between these two sentences? The students will have worked on the assignment by the time we return. The students will have been working on the assignment by the time we return. So what's the difference here? The first one shows completion. The second one shows incompletion. Yeah, exactly, Son Goku. You got it. Yeah, exactly. Fate dog. Yeah. So the second sentence implies that the event will not be completed, whereas the first one implies that the event will be completed. Bye, Marcus. But yeah, that's the difference. So when you use the continuous form, it typically means that the action is not completed. Typically. Yeah, so will have worked is the future perfect simple, and will have been working is the future perfect continuous. So you have the future perfect and the future perfect progressive. Classes are typically no longer than 3 hours. Okay. So that's the difference. Okay, so to recap, what are the 4 verb forms or tenses? Like, what are the 4 verb forms of the present tense? Like, so what are those? So like, for example, present simple, present perfect, like what are they? There are 4 forms. Yeah, exactly. Present simple, present continuous, present perfect, and present perfect continuous. And the same could be said for the past and future tenses. So you can have a present simple, present perfect, present simple, present continuous, present perfect, and I'll put simple in brackets or parentheses, and then present perfect continuous. And then you can have the future simple, future continuous, future perfect simple, and future perfect continuous. Present simple, present continuous, present perfect simple, present perfect continuous, past simple, past continuous, past perfect simple, past perfect continuous, future simple, future continuous, future perfect simple, and future perfect continuous. So when you combine the tense with when you combine tense and aspect, you get 12 different combinations. And I know there are conditional forms, but we'll get to that later, because that would lead to four other tense aspect combinations. Okay. Now this is for the indicative mood. The indicative mood. What is the indicative mood? Or what is mood? I should say, what is mood? What is mood exactly? What's grammatical mood? What is grammatical mood? Mood as in feeling, sort of. But how exactly would that be expressed in a grammatical sense? Yeah, exactly. The indicative mood is used to express a fact or something that's strongly believed to be true, or to express a statement or whatever. That's the indicative. It indicates reality. Whereas the subjunctive mood deals with